United States completely miscalculate how quickly this war could end? Did American leaders believe Iran would collapse quickly like Venezuela? Or is the situation turning into something far more dangerous? Something closer to Afghanistan? These are the questions shaking the global political landscape today, and they're not theoretical questions anymore, because the war is already unfolding. It has now been several days since the conflict escalated, and the Middle East remains on fire. American and Israeli air forces are bombing Tehran, the capital of Iran. The same Tehran where leaders once spoke about bringing democracy is now under heavy bombardment. Meanwhile, Iran, despite losing key leaders, has responded with massive retaliation. Missiles are striking cities across Israel, Tel Aviv, Haifa, Jerusalem. Across the Gulf region, alarms are sounding and explosions are being reported. Air travel has become chaotic. Flights are being cancelled or rerouted, and diplomatic missions across the region are shutting down. American embassies in cities like Riyadh and Kuwait have already been closed. The United States has issued emergency warnings, telling its citizens to leave the Middle East immediately. But there is one major problem. No one has explained how they should leave. Commercial flights are disrupted. Airspace across the region is unstable. And despite being the world's most powerful military nation, the United States has made it clear it cannot guarantee evacuation for its own citizens. Millions of Americans remain in the region, and they have effectively been told to find their own way out. At the same time, casualties continue to rise. 6 American soldiers have already been confirmed dead. But the greatest cost of this war has been inside Iran itself. One of the most tragic incidents occurred when a bomb struck a girls' school. More than 160 people were killed. Across Iranian cities, people have taken to the streets, not to protest, not to start a revolution, but simply to mourn. Despite the destruction and loss of leadership, Iran is showing no sign of surrender. Military analysts say the country is currently operating in a decentralized war mode. Following the assassination of key leadership figures, command structures have become fragmented. Iran's defense system was designed to continue operating even if central command collapsed. This strategy is known as mosaic defense. Different military units operate independently. Missile launches and drone strikes can occur without waiting for centralized approval. This creates a dangerous situation. Even if the United States suddenly decided to call for a ceasefire, there may not be a single authority in Iran capable of stopping every military unit. Iran's own foreign minister has acknowledged that communication with many units has been lost, which means the war could continue even without central coordination. And that makes diplomacy extremely difficult. At this point, the United States faces 2 possible paths. The first option is total escalation. America could attempt to destroy every Iranian missile launcher, radar system, and military base. That would require targeting hidden installations in mountains, underground bunkers, and remote provinces. It would be a long, expensive campaign. The second option would be diplomacy. Washington could try to negotiate with whatever leadership structure remains in Tehran. But there is a major obstacle. Many of the people who previously made those decisions have already been killed, which raises a difficult question. Who exactly is the United States supposed to negotiate with? Without a central decision-making authority, a ceasefire becomes extremely complicated. Meanwhile, inside the United States, the political justification for this war is falling apart. Members of Congress are questioning the intelligence that led to the attack. Some lawmakers are openly accusing the administration of misleading the public, even within Donald Trump's own political party. Opposition is growing. The official explanation for the war has changed several times. First, the goal was to stop Iran's nuclear program. Then it became about regime change. Then it shifted to weakening Iran's missile capability. Then officials claimed Iran posed an immediate threat. Each new explanation has raised more questions. Critics argue that the United States entered the war without a clear strategy, and that uncertainty is creating serious political pressure on the White House. Polls show that nearly 60% of Americans oppose the military campaign. If the war drags on, it could become a major political crisis for the president. Beyond politics, there is another reality. Modern warfare is incredibly expensive. Even before the first missile was launched, the United States had already spent more than $1.5 billion positioning aircraft carriers, fighter jets, and naval forces. And now the war has become a battle of endurance. Iran is launching large numbers of ballistic missiles. Each missile requires expensive interceptor systems to stop. These interceptor missiles, like Patriot systems, cost millions of dollars each. At the rate Iran is firing missiles, the United States could run out of interceptors faster than expected. Some reports suggest certain regional allies could exhaust their defensive missiles in just a few days. Iran claims it has enough missiles to continue attacks for months. If that claim is true, the war could become a long and costly struggle. Another major risk lies in the global energy market. The Strait of Hormuz, one of the most important shipping routes in the world, is now under severe threat. Every day, roughly 20 million barrels of oil pass through this narrow waterway. Iran has warned that it could close the strait completely. If that happens, the global oil supply would be severely disrupted. Energy prices would skyrocket. Brent crude has already surged toward $80 per barrel, and analysts warn prices could reach $150. For countries that depend heavily on Middle Eastern oil, this could trigger major economic consequences. Inflation could rise, transport costs could increase, global supply chains could face serious disruptions. In other words, the war is not just a regional crisis. It has the potential to affect the entire global economy. The final question may be the most important one. How does this war actually end? The United States and Israel could attempt a massive military campaign to destroy Iran's infrastructure, but even that might not guarantee victory. Iran has spent decades preparing for asymmetric warfare. Even if major facilities are destroyed, smaller mobile units could continue launching attacks. History shows that air campaigns alone rarely produce quick political victories. The United States learned this in Iraq, in Libya, and in Afghanistan. Another major challenge is negotiation. Normally, wars end through diplomatic agreements, but if Iran's leadership structure has been shattered, who will sign the agreement? Who will enforce it? And perhaps most importantly, why would Iran negotiate if it still has the ability to strike back? For now, the situation remains uncertain. What began as a calculated military strike has turned into a conflict with unpredictable consequences. And as missiles continue to fly across the Middle East, one thing has become clear. Opening the door to war is easy. Closing it is far more difficult.